Okay, so as folks are coming in, I will just get started. You know what, Olga? We can unlock or just people can come in, so you don't have to keep letting them in. Every time the person who's waiting in the waiting room pops up, it throws me off. So I just unsecure it. They can come in. I don't think we've had any Zoom bombers in a really long time. So welcome everyone. My name is Devin Horton and I am the Graduate Diversity Officer for STEM disciplines here at UC Davis. And I am going to talk to you today a little bit about who I am and how I came to be as it pertains to being a graduate student, particularly graduate students who are pursuing PhDs. So for the master's folks, a lot of this information will be relevant, but I speak a lot from the perspective of a PhD. So I haven't forgotten you, it's just been my experience. But the tools, I think, are universal. So we've got a few people in here. I'm going to create breakout rooms because the first thing we're gonna do is, well, the second thing we're gonna do is a breakout activity. So for those of you who are here, this is a disclaimer that I like to give every time I do a diversity presentation of any sort, because I think it's really important, A, to let allies know what we're working with, and B, to let those of us who are from marginalized communities know that we don't always have to be doing labor. So it is not the job of the oppressor to, the oppressed to enlighten or to educate their oppressors. There's no reason to feel guilty about not wanting to engage in the extra, taxing, usually uncompensated, intellectual and emotional labor of educating people on their problematic behaviors. While it is a kind and generous thing to do, we do not owe it to anyone. We deserve self-care, and that might look like not educating. However, I choose to do this work so you can ask me questions, but you can ask me questions between like 9 and 5 Monday through Friday, because if I see you on the streets on the weekend, I'm not going to answer these questions. All right, so now that everybody's clear on the rules of engagement, we're going to do an icebreaker activity. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to send a link to you, and then I'm going to push you into breakout rooms. And I want you to have a chat about what your hopes and your fears are about, your greatest hope and your greatest fear about graduate school are. And the reason that this is a breakout room worthy activity is because we're going to build a word cloud. And we're going to see what things come up for everyone. All right, let's see. Let me give you the, here we go. Icebreaker. All right, share, copy link. Okay, so everyone should have the link now, and then I'm going to push you all into breakout rooms just for a few minutes. And I want you to go in there and I want you to chat and answer the question that's in the actual word cloud. And then we'll come back, we'll see what kinds of things filled up the word cloud, okay? There we go. Create. Is that everybody's fear? Sheesh. So we're waiting for everyone to come out of the breakout rooms. Okay. Oh, no, we have one group still chatting. Okay, so we're all back and we're sharing the screen so we can see what folks are concerned about. And oh, there's language barriers. The biggest one seems to be not graduating, right? Not feeling comfortable, money, racism, isolation, crappy projects. Here's a little hint. A crappy project with a good mentor is better than a good project with a crappy mentor, just so you know. Not building a community. Okay, let's see if people answered the next question. So, oh, I think it's a separate link. Hold on, y'all. Copy link, wait. There we go.
It updated on the same link.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, so it's showing the new question.
Okay, well, I'm gonna pop in the link for those people who came in after so that they can go ahead. So you all talked a lot about, I'm sure, your worst fears and your best fears, but I'd like to populate the word cloud. Go ahead and put in there, what are the things that you are most excited about for grad school? What's the best case scenario in terms of outcomes? Awesome. Yes, I definitely met some of my best friends in grad school. That part is true. That's it. That's it. The only thing anybody cares about is great connections? What the heck? Okay. I'm like, wait a minute. There's a lot of other things you can do for a lot less trauma to make good connections. Okay, so this is pretty cool. Tangible results, jobs. Yes, yes, fulfilling work, incredible experience. It is like no other, that is for sure. I always have one flyer. Uh, good, this is really good. Graduation. Yeah, sweet. So part of the reason I have you all do this exercise in particular is because a lot of times when we have these conversations about surviving graduate school, we're really talking about doom and gloom, right? We're aware that graduate school, oh God, I don't know why I have a flyer today. We are always thinking about graduate school in terms of, you know, the sort of the negatives, I'm going to get this education and I'm going to have this degree and I'm going to be able to have a seat at tables I didn't have a seat at before, but also you're telling me it's going to be trauma, right, to go through it. And so I think it's really important to think about what's the absolute worst that could happen and then compare that alongside the potential upswings, the upshots. So like I said before, I'm going to talk to you about who I am, how I came to be here, and what my position is on how to acclimate to and survive graduate school in general, but more specifically as people of color and folks from marginalized communities, because we do have a very unique experience. There are so few of us in most of these programs that our experience rarely bubbles up to the top as the majority. And so my goal is to let you know my ideas and some tools to maybe survive this thing, and then give you an opportunity at the end to ask some questions if you have them. So who am I? Apparently I'm a unicorn. When you go to grad school, you're surrounded by grad students and then your best friends become grad students. And so you forget that you are kind of a unicorn, right? It seems like everybody's got a PhD or everybody's got a master's, when in reality, like 6% of the population have a PhD. So it's not nearly as typical as we might feel like it is in our everyday lives. I'm also an anomaly for all intents and purposes, and maybe some of you are anomalies too. So I'm a queer, Black, cisgender female person. I was born in South Central LA. We had no money. I'm an 80s kid, so my mother was on drugs. She had me at 16. I don't know who my father is. Like, I'm literally a walking after school special. My aunt raised me. And even though I'm sitting here talking to you all bubbly and, beat faced, I am still a sufferer of imposter syndrome and stereotype threat, and am a constant victim of microaggressions. And so when you think about it, the odds are pretty much stacked against me, but I'm not actually an anomaly. So part of this conversation also is to debunk the myth that you're special. We are not special. We all know people in our communities who are equally as bright as we are, who just don't have the same opportunities, especially those who are introverted, right? More introverted people sometimes society doesn't exactly pour into them because they can't always recognize their brilliance or their potential. So extroverts tend to take up a lot of space. But anyway, what I am is proof that targeted efforts to promote equity, inclusion, and diversity actually work. I'm a product of almost every support program possible. I'm talking about food stamps, FHA loan, student loans, Medicaid, you name it, I've had it all. I'm proof that education, when you have good mentoring, good infrastructure can actually be a professional equalizer and help lift folks out of poverty. I got lucky. I went to a pretty good high school, and then I went to Tuskegee, which is a pretty cool college. I'm the first in my family to obtain a bachelor's degree, really to go to college, to graduate from college at all. I think a couple of people started community college, but didn't finish. My Ph.D. is in Cellular and Molecular Biology, which is unusual. There are not a lot of Black women with STEM PhDs. I'm the only person in my family to earn a PhD. I was a professor for 5 years, and the only one that my family has ever actually met, not all of them, but because now some of the younger ones are going to college. But before me, I mean, when I went to college, I didn't even know you needed a PhD to be a professor. So that should tell you where I came from. I used to work at UCLA, and now I work at UC Davis. So that is who I am in a nutshell. And part of what I want to talk to you about today is that there is a hidden curriculum that is really necessary that needs to be unveiled in order for us to be able to thrive in graduate school. And so what I'm talking about when I say that is you already know what the academic curriculum is, right? You know about the classes, you know about the requirements, you know, the 4-year, 5-year, 6-year plan to obtain your degree. This is information that you can find usually on a website, in a course catalog, syllabus, wherever. You can readily find this information. But the hidden curriculum is all of the information you need to know to be successful, but that nobody tells you. It's not written down, so you got to guess, you got to figure it out. But it's hard to figure out because you don't even know what kinds of questions to ask, right? You don't know what you don't know. Excuse me, there's no actual syllabus, and it's really the hardest time, or excuse me, the most impactful time that the hidden curriculum exists is that first year, both in undergrad and as a graduate student, right? And that's why we have all of these first year programs to try and onboard or acclimate folks to the hidden curriculum. It would be much nicer if the system would just change and unhide said curriculum. But instead, you know, America, we like to put Band-Aids on bullet wounds. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to have just like 2 or 3 minute chat about what are some of the things that you found to be hidden when you went to college. There are things that are hidden even for people who aren't first-gen college students. So I think this is a worthwhile discussion. I see there was something in the chat. Let's see what that. Oh, sure. We'll talk about stereotype threat when you all come back. So I'm going to talk about microaggressions, stereotype threat, and imposter syndrome. Actually, that's not true because that would make this a very, very long presentation, but we will talk about stereotype threat. Okay, I'm going to put the question in the chat and then send you off for just a couple of minutes. Okay, welcome back. And because we always love a good word cloud, put in your stuff. Let us know. What were some of the things? This is how I, so just FYI, part of the reason I do word clouds and don't ask people to unmute to talk is because Zoom can be really awkward. And I feel like it puts introverts on the spot all the time. And introverts have a lot to say, but they don't always want to say it out loud. So I hope this is a way that everybody gets to share without having to be called out on the spot. So what are some of the things you found to be hidden when you went to college? For example, I didn't know what the heck a provost was. It's like, what, or a bursar. It's like a bursar, what is that? Things that, how am I supposed to know? You need to be nice to the person at the bursar because they can help you if you have issues. Yeah, networking was absolutely true. I think someone meant funding opportunities. Office hours. Oh yeah, people don't not, I mean, the professors say you should go to office hours, but it feels like a suggestion and not like something you really, really should do. Yeah, I think that's true. Sweet. Okay, now we're going to move on. Oh, networking seems to be the most popular one. Time management, yeah. Although I feel like they talked to you about that in orientation. I don't feel like we believed them, but I do feel like they told us about that. Okay. Where's my presentation? All right, we're going to go back to PowerPoint. Make it happen, Captain. There we go. Okay, so how did I survive and make it this far? Because really, I should probably be doubled over in a corner by now somewhere, but I'm not. I'm here just for you all. Well, the thing I say in every presentation, anytime that I can, is it wasn't grit. If anybody's telling you about grit or freaking growth mindset, throw it in the trash, put it in the bin. And just for giggles, this is also something I like to say so that people can get an understanding as to why grit is problematic and it isn't the reason for any of our success. It's a coded term for saying that we survived white supremacy, anti-Blackness, and capitalism without having to actually name those systems directly, or name the ways in which those systems disproportionately impact young children of color. And Andre Perry said, Black, Brown, and Indigenous students don't need to learn grit. They need schools to stop being racist. So I just want you to know, you don't have to have grit. However, finding community and developing a true self-care plan is really how you survive. And when I talk to you about these things, I want you to know, I didn't go to grad school and just do this. I went to grad school, almost dropped out, and then by default and by proxy happen to find these things. And I can look back retroactively and say, or retrospectively and say, oh, okay, I see that's how I survived. And having been able to work with graduate students and undergrads up to this point, sort of pouring into them in the ways that I ended up receiving support, and coming to the conclusion that these things are the most likely to make you the most successful. But what does that look like exactly? So people say self-care all the time, and you think spas, you think massages, building community. What does that really look like? So finding community, which we're going to talk a little bit about today, but using that community to help you unmask the hidden curriculum that we're talking about. I can't just tell you all the things today. There's not even enough time. But if I'm part of your network and you have other faculty who are part of your network and coordinators and friends across disciplines, all these people together will help you unmask the hidden curriculum so that hopefully the experience is a lot more positive. Learning to understand and manage feelings of imposter syndrome and stereotype threat. And we're going to go into pretty good detail today about imposter syndrome. It's sort of a quick abbreviated version of the actual imposter syndrome workshop I typically give. And then we'll do a definition of stereotype threat because it'll be pretty clear once you get the definition. And then also, of course, have fun. You have to have a life outside of graduate school. If you don't, it will be a miserable existence. So you have to make sure to treat doing things you enjoy that aren't necessarily always intellectually stimulating, in addition to graduate school, which hopefully you enjoy because it's intellectually stimulating. And then I always say everybody should go to therapy, even if you don't think you need it, especially when you don't need it. When you're doing well, it's the best time to go. So you have a baseline. And then when problems arise, you know how, or your therapist has the tools to help you work to get back to your baseline. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about imposter syndrome really quickly, and hopefully this will clear up some questions. And then we're going to talk a little bit about community, and then it will be open for questions for you all. So imposter phenomenon technically is a physiological pattern wherein despite the external evidence of your competence, you're convinced that you're a fraud and that you don't deserve your achievements or that you got your achievements by luck. I remember feeling like I got my whole bachelor's degree. I mean, have the actual degree, but thinking it was a joke. And so I had a change of major card because I went to school back before the internet was created. So I had a change of major card, and I was so freaked out that it was all a ruse that I still have that change of major card because I thought they were going to call me and say, no, 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 you don't have a degree. It was all baloney. We figured it out. You weren't even supposed to be here. And I don't know why, but I felt like having that card was going to be like, no, but y'all signed it. It's proof. So it really manifests in some really unique ways, but it's essentially the feeling that you're not actually responsible for your successes. It's actually not even a syndrome, but we call it a syndrome, even though the authors didn't want it to be another way of just pathologizing women. So it isn't even a medical term. It is a phenomenon, and it affects people who are not just women. So interestingly, the origins of imposter syndrome are actually probably from you being so smart, right? So when you're a kid who's really smart, people value you. People like that, especially if you're smart and extroverted. Excuse me. What happens though is when you end up in high school or college or grad school, or even when you're a postdoc or faculty, and something goes wrong, so you get a bad grade, your paper gets rejected, your grant isn't funded, you start having feelings of fraudulence, like, oh, well, they think I'm smart, and if I'm so smart, how come I can't do X, Y, Z? And so what ends up happening is when you come up against that challenge, it creates feelings of self-doubt. And I'm not sure, but it seems to be that the first or second time that happens really sets the stage for how it's going to continue to happen. It can come from unrealistic notions of what it means to be competent. And just a note, so someone asked about stereotype threat. So stereotype threat is the belief or the feeling of people from marginalized populations that we're at risk of either conforming to or confirming some stereotype about your identity group. So angry Black woman, spicy Latina, I don't know, whatever else. I can't think of any of the other awful stereotypes. But just this fear that anything that you do is going to confirm that for someone, or you're going to accidentally turn into the stereotype that people believe is out there. So there are 5 types of imposter syndrome. There's the perfectionist, sets excessively high goals for themselves. And when they don't reach that goal, they experience severe self-doubt and concern about being able to measure up. There's the soloist. This person feels like asking for any help will reveal that they're a phony. The natural genius, they need to believe that they're naturally intelligent, and so they often judge their competence based on how easily or how quickly they can actually do something, as opposed to the effort put in and the output. These folks often feel shame if it takes too long to master something. The super person pushes themselves to work harder and harder in order to measure up, but it's kind of a false cover up for insecurities. This population of people tends to be addicted to the validation that comes from working, but not the actual work or the product itself. So tending to look busy, you hear these people talk a lot about, oh, I'm so busy, I'll have so much to do, because they value that. And then the expert, they measure their competence based on what and how much they know or can do, but they always feel like they can never know enough, and they feel like being exposed or inexperienced or unknowledgeable. And that is me, I'm number 5. And so the question is, what kind of imposter syndrome do you have? And because, of course, this is the thing I like to do. Let's see. There we go. It should have, you should be able to use the link, but just in case, I'm going to drop it back in the chat and see what folks have. I know you need to see may need to see the definitions again, but I don't know how to toggle back and forth between them. Oh, I guess you have the chat now. So you have the link. I'm going to go back to the presentation so you can see the definitions. Perfectionist, soloist, natural genius, super person, the expert. See what folks are putting in there. Yeah, it always takes a minute to populate. Well, you all populate. I don't know what's happening. Oh, there we go. Every time I'm about to go away, it comes. Okay, the perfectionist. Everybody finds themselves to be a perfectionist. That's always the case. It's interesting. And I reordered them this time because I thought everybody was picking that one because I put it first. So I didn't put it first this time, and people still find themselves being perfectionists. So yeah, it's really interesting. All right, so back to the talk. How do you combat imposter syndrome? So one of the first things you need to do to be successful in graduate school is to figure out how to combat imposter syndrome, because you come in with imposter syndrome and it really plays some mind tricks on you. And so one of the main things I encourage is to manage the stressful thoughts, because they will ruminate and ruminate and ruminate, and really you won't even know it, and your anxiety will have you all over the place. You have to prioritize activities that make you feel productive, right? Things that you enjoy that make you feel productive, and sleep and exercise. I know that everybody tells you you need to go sleep and you need to exercise, but that is, it's really useful when we think about combating imposter syndrome. So that's out of order. Volunteer in leadership positions, right? Because when you engage in activities that you're good at, it's good for your self-esteem, for your confidence. Volunteer and become responsible for others in a way that you're not teaching, but you're just responsible for supporting other people. This allows the focus to be on something other than you. And then you're not in that sort of competition with your colleagues or your classmates. Build a supportive social network. We're going to talk about this in a second. Find your peeps, preferably outside your major area if possible. You want to be friends with people outside of your major area so you don't have that competition, and you don't have that fear of, when you say, hey, I'm feeling insecure about this, you're saying it to someone who you feel like you would be in competition with, right? So you want to find folks outside of your research area. And then you all can share about your feelings of imposter syndrome. Find a supportive, understanding mentor. Again, preferably outside of your major. You want this person to not have any direct responsibility for your success. That way, when you talk to them, you can be honest and get the kind of feedback and support that you need without worrying that it's going to impact your ability to finish your degree. Make a list of your strengths. What are you good at, right? Thinking about the things that you're good at really will remind you of how you even got here. Look back at examples of your own success, of successful work. Sometimes when you've had some wins, maybe presentations, positive reviews, just remind yourself of all of the positive things and the successes that you've had that actually brought you to this place. This is hard. Therapy helps, but you have to eventually accept that some tasks just won't be done perfectly, and complete is better than perfect, right? Beware of how you talk to yourself. You have to purge the inner critic. Not an easy thing to do, again, which is why therapy is always the last thing I encourage folks to do. But with that being said, you're not lucky for your success. You deserve to be here. You need to talk about exactly what you did to be able to accomplish your success, right? You didn't just get to grad school because you decided one day, oh, I know, I'm bored, I'm gonna just apply to UC Davis. There's a whole list of things that you did in preparation to get here. And you being here is the success. So remember those things. And then try and keep a running list of the compliments you receive. I would keep it somewhere near my desk, my workstation, right? Even the littlest ones, because those can be really motivating. Find your people. In order to thrive in elite environments, it is imperative that you engage in serious self-care. That does not look like spa treatments and pedicures. It looks like building a community around you to insulate you from the F-bomb stuff that I can't say on when I'm being recorded. You can't control other people's behaviors, but you can make safe havens for yourself. And that includes building community from day one. Hopefully you all participated in Holistic You, the diversity orientation. If you did, hopefully you met some people in some of the breakout rooms there. So some other activities that we have are the community dinners. So it's the Graduate Diversity Community Dinners. They're hosted by Grad Studies, but that really means me. They're monthly. You need to register. If you're on this call, you likely already got the Zoom invitation, but I'm happy to send it again. I'm not Zoom, sorry, the Eventbrite invitation for you to register. But if you haven't, let me know in the chat and I'll grab the link and send it to you again. At the dinners, right now they're going to be outside on the north lawn of Walker Hall because I don't want to do any indoor activities, but there will be food, it'll be relaxed. The idea is just to chat, get to know each other, and just start the process of building that community. Hopefully in the future, we'll have some guest speakers and things like that. The first one is Tuesday, October 26th from 5:30 to 7 p.m. So if you haven't already received an invitation to that, please let me know in the chat. And like I said, I'll grab it. But that's one way to get started building community. I hope also when you were in your breakout rooms, people chatted enough to feel like they maybe met a new friend. There are a jillion, excuse this formatting, it's terrible. There are a jillion graduate student organizations on campus, so many different ones, so many affinity groups. Please, please join these groups. Even if you don't want to be active and volunteering or any of that, this is a place to, these are places for you to go to feel like the institution isn't so big. It shrinks it down and gives you access to people who have similar life experiences as you. You can also host your own event. There are lots of mindfulness activities on campus. There's a whole health and wellness website. If you just Google UC Davis Student Health and Wellness, you will get a calendar full of activities that you can participate in that include yoga, mindfulness meditation daily, and some weekly activities. There are all kinds of things that you can do. And if you're at the stage of if you're still feeling uncomfortable about doing too many in-person things, you can create virtual activities. And you can actually request them. If you send me an email and say, hey, I don't really want to meet in person, but I want to do something, I'm absolutely happy to help you put that together. Of course, I always say a good therapist will help you manage the irrational thoughts, but will help you with a lot of things. The process of going through graduate school is really truly a transformation. You will on the other side of this be sort of who you were before that degree and who you are after. And you can always look back and see the transformation happening, but when you're going through it, you don't always recognize it. So I think it's really important for people to seek out therapy. And as a student, you have access to therapy on campus. Again, if you go to if you just Google UC Davis Student Health and Wellness, you will find information there for group therapy on campus, for temporary sessions. So you get like a finite number of sessions on campus. And all of these people are trained really well to support students from marginalized populations, but also FYI, Graduate Studies has its very own counselor, Dr. Bayan Chen. She's actually situated in Walker Hall, and she has office hours specifically just for graduate students. So if that's support that you need, you can reach out to me and I will put you in touch with whoever you need. But you can also always reach out to Bayan directly. So some things to remember is that imposter syndrome can be lonely. It can live silently in your mind for a really long time. In fact, a lot of times after I give my imposter syndrome workshop, I have a couple people say, I knew something was off, but I didn't know that's what it was. So this may be your first time even recognizing that you might have imposter syndrome. It's detrimental to your mental health. Human beings were meant to be in community with one another. So it's really important that at a minimum, your first step is to find community. And just to let you know, a few behaviors that are associated with imposter syndrome: avoidance, self-sabotage, procrastination, self-doubt. You're not lazy. Lazy isn't real. It's not a thing. I think it's a social construct. As such, if you find yourself engaging in these behaviors, instead of thinking yourself lazy or sort of being down on yourself, maybe pause and think, is there something happening here? Do I feel insecure about something and so I'm maybe avoiding it? Do I feel anxious about something and so maybe I'm procrastinating? Okay, so those are some behaviors that are associated with imposter syndrome. And with that, I will take any questions that you all may have at this point. You can pop them in the chat or you can unmute if you'd like. I will put my email address in the chat. Oh, thank you, Olga. She put Bayen's information in the chat, which is really useful. She may actually also be giving a workshop or two this academic year. But yeah. Any questions? So there is another workshop that talks a lot more about microaggressions. And so we didn't really go into too much detail there, but. Okay, well, if people don't have questions, I guess that's it. I appreciate you all for coming and for sticking around and for participating. I hope you made one or two new friends in your groups. I like to push everybody when we're doing virtual stuff. I like to push you all out into breakout rooms because you seem to talk more to each other in those rooms for some reason. I don't know why, but I get it. I support it. So I hope you made a friend or two there. I see all the thank yous. You are very welcome. It is my pleasure. And yeah. Thank you. All right. You all have a great rest of your Thursday. Don't work too hard. All right. See you, everybody.